Howdy, boys and girls. It's Wivalwy week. It's Wivalwy.
Wival.
I can't believe I have to turn to Desmond Howard to figure out how to pronounce this correctly. And if you guys get that reference, you are watching the correct show. This is show 11 of the Carla and Crappy Show. We are down to the ultimate to the final weekend of the regular season. And I can't actually say rivalry week, right? Was
yes, close? You can. That was close. Yeah, rivalry week. Here.
I'm Crappy. She's Carla. We have a ton of stuff to talk about because as we've been doing our own Final Fours along with the College Football Playoff Committee, we've been having discussions about when do you figure some of this stuff out, and obviously we've got this weekend and a few teams, not all, get the benefit of a conference championship game next weekend, but things are really going to shake out here, and actually. It was kind of instructive. The thing that Herb Street said on tonight's, I'm giving away when we're taping this, but we just watched the new rankings today. I said last week Notre Dame wins out, they are in based on the position that they were in the rankings last week. Herb Street said something that I should keep in mind, and I did not, in that these are not polls, and this is done differently. And as we saw, Notre Dame is no longer in the top four of the official rankings. I don't have any idea which one of us went first last week. Why don't you go ahead?
I would say I went first last week, so technically you should go first this week.
Okay, I can do that. But and I will say. Actually, as a Notre Dame skeptic, I was kind of happy to see the committee did what it did because it sort of validates what I have going on here. Clemson still number one, Alabama still number two. Although Carla, I couldn't figure out which SEC division Charleston Southern plays in. Do you know? Did I miss that somewhere?
Yeah, no, they don't. Again, we beat up the SEC about this every year. About why the heck do you schedule these cupcake games in week 11 of the season?
It's not just Alabama, but for
no,
a team,
it's SEC wide.
For a team that is in the college football playoff conversation, that is embarrassing actually to have a 1AA school on the schedule in November. However, Alabama is still number two. I have undefeated Iowa at number three, and perhaps this might be a little different, and I'm definitely showing my biases here. I have Michigan State at number four. And then I think the only two other teams that matter in the immediate future are in kind of 5A and 5B are Oklahoma and Notre Dame. Although we can talk about things and the way things might work and how that could even go differently. I think a strong win by Notre Dame would probably trump a victory by Oklahoma over Oklahoma State, and get them in the final. It could if you had to pick between those two. Obviously, I don't think we're going to get two Big Ten teams in the Final Four. It's again snapshot of what's going on right now. There's still a ton of stuff that can happen. Carla, what do you think as far as your Final Four?
So as I was watching the final or the announcement tonight, they got down to the last six teams. First of all, I think it's really interesting that Baylor is sitting at 7. That's there is still an outside chance that Baylor could slip in here, depending on if Oklahoma State wins and Baylor wins out, then Baylor wins the Big 12, and they could potentially slide up into that 4 spot. But as I was sitting there knowing what the last 6 teams were, they just hadn't announced the orders, and assuming that Clemson was 1 and Alabama was 2, which I'm totally okay with. I was sitting in the living room, and my fiance is a sports writer who is home covering it, was sitting there with me, and I was probably driving him nuts because I was like, give me Oklahoma and Iowa. Give me Oklahoma and Iowa. Give me Oklahoma and Iowa. And they gave me Oklahoma and Iowa in the wrong order. I would have Iowa at 3 and Oklahoma at 4. Okay. I think it's very interesting that Michigan State jumped Notre Dame as well. I think that's very, very telling.
That was the one revealing thing that Jeff Long said. Said Notre Dame really got dinged for the past 2 weeks, but especially their stinker against Boston College last weekend. It was a win, but it's about as ugly as you can get.
Yeah, and they did the same thing for Florida too. Florida having to go to overtime. They took a significant hit in the rankings. I was joking when we were off the air last week. I said that I was going to try to see if David would let me crash the conference call with Jeff Long, and he did this week. So he put the conference call on speaker. I was listening.
That's actual access, people. Right there.
So I was listening to what Jeff Long had to say, and as most conference calls go, those people that don't get on these a lot, we were just talking before we got on the air, like not a lot happens on conference calls. You don't get a lot of good stuff, but there were a couple of things that if you keep asking somebody enough times, you're going to start getting some insight into what's actually happening in that room. And one of the interesting things that came out of that call, in regards to to your Big Ten scenario that you're talking about, he probably would not have argued all that much about having Michigan State also in the top 4. It was really, really telling what he said. That the committee felt that Oklahoma was significantly stronger than both of those Big Ten teams to put Oklahoma at number 3.
Okay.
That the body of work was better. They were convinced of that. Put Oklahoma at 3. And then when it came down to Iowa and Michigan State, it was dead even. And this is really, really interesting when he said they gave the benefit of the doubt to the undefeated team. So being undefeated still means something, which is good.
That's good to hear. Because I think it should. I think it should.
Yeah, and I was happy to hear that as well. But like you said, that the Notre Dame getting dinged for the way they played last week, Florida getting dinged for the way they played last week, that kind of falls into those sorts of things. But yeah, that was really interesting to hear that. And to hear that come from him. And so that's the line of thinking when we were talking about Notre Dame's situation. If Oklahoma State wins this weekend, is that enough to knock Oklahoma out and put Notre Dame back in? Possibly, probably not this week though, because the Big Ten is going to sort itself out. But what it does say is that if Oklahoma wins the Big 12 with Iowa at 4 and Michigan State at 5, if that's your Big Ten title game, and I know that's not what you want, but if that's your Big Ten title game, the winner of that game is going to be in the playoff. Yeah. And it's going to take a lot and Notre Dame's going to have to wipe Stanford off of the field this weekend to really kind of do what your Buckeyes did last year and make a huge statement against really tough competition. I thought especially looking lackluster last couple weeks.
Yeah. The interesting thing with my first 2 teams out, neither have the benefit of a conference championship game. Right. And so kind of the lukewarm performances this weekend, even if they're wins, that's more of a thing for Oklahoma. If Notre Dame were to lose, then can things work out so Stanford jumps up into the top 4? It's possible. I don't know. There's still a ton of stuff that could happen, which is why I'm desperately hedging my bets as we discuss this stuff. Yeah. And of course I'm still holding out hope that Ohio State could figure out a way to get into the Big Ten championship game. And there's what 2 things need to happen: to win against Michigan, and hey, Carla, we are
Penn State.
Thank you.
I'm wearing Ohio State colors for you tonight.
I appreciate it. I noticed that and I appreciate it. I have friends in Pennsylvania, and I hope they give me a hand on Saturday. We will see how that goes. The other thing that's happening this weekend is that there are not counting the 3 games that we're going to actually formally discuss, but I counted 5 that have it's a top 25 games that have lines at 2 points or less, and some of these actually could have some bearing on what happens with the championship, with the playoff. And so we're gonna do a fun thing. We're gonna do a bonus. I thought Carla's gonna be extra prepared since you listened to Jeff Long talk longer than I did.
He didn't say anything.
It doesn't matter. We're gonna do a speed round. We're gonna do this. I'm going to give you teams rankings and line. And Carla, you just briefly give us a winner. Number 16 Navy at number 19 Houston. Houston is a 1-point favorite.
Navy wins, if Houston wins this game, chaos ensues. Which is interesting because Navy is, I mean, we're not supposed to break this down, I know, but Navy is a group of 5 team. And if Navy makes it to it, whoever wins that conference championship will have a shot at the New Year's Day Bowl or New Year's Six Bowl, as they call them. Navy. So if Houston wins that game, Navy is essentially out of that conversation because they cannot win the AAC title game. So this is essentially a play-in game. My dad is a Navy man, so I've got to go Navy.
Okay, that's fair. I'm a Tom Harmon fan from last year, as we've discussed before. So on the basis of absolutely nothing beyond that, I'm going to pick Houston. Next up, and this one actually does have a lot of bearing of what's going to happen further down the road. Number 5, Iowa at unranked Nebraska. Iowa is a 1.5 point favorite.
Wow, I don't see that line. Iowa wins. I just think they're number 4 in number 4 in the college football rankings. They want to play in that title game. Iowa.
I agree. That's of all the contrived rivalries that have been created in the Big Ten over the years, this one I think is one of the coolest. So there's always that crazy stuff, and Nebraska's lost some really, really, really crazy close games, but I see Iowa winning this one. This was a game, if you're looking in September, you would have thought, yeah, man, this is the one. Did not work out the way. Number 10 Baylor at number 18 TCU. Baylor is a 1.5 favorite.
I think you have to go Baylor in this one, just because of the dings that TCU has. Although they've done a nice job of making up for those. And man, wouldn't it be fun if TCU played spoiler? But this Baylor's got something to play for here. They've still got a shot at the Big 12 title. I think Baylor wins. Okay.
There's going to be one SEC team at least in the playoff. And who knows? It would be far-fetched, but it's possible. Number 22, Ole Miss at Mississippi State. Ole Miss is a 1 point favorite.
Ooh. That's a tough one. The Egg Bowl is always interesting. I know it's
ridiculous.
Gosh, I'm gonna go Mississippi State in this one. If I feel a little bit more comfortable with their offense, they've been a little bit more consistent this year. I like and it's the Dak. We mentioned the Dak Prescott farewell tour.
Yep.
I think Mississippi State wins. I love the line though. That's gonna be a great rivalry.
On the strength of the Dak Prescott his final game at home, rivalry game, et cetera, Ole Miss, good, not consistent. I'm going with Mississippi State there. Number 14. Check out the rankings on this one, and then the line. Number 14, Florida State at number 8, Florida. Florida State is a 2 point favorite.
After Florida's performance last week, that does not surprise me. In fact, I tweeted this on Saturday that I was going to throw something in the show this week about what happens if Florida beats Alabama. And then last week happened. This is we don't need to worry about that.
Oh, we'll talk about that next week.
Yeah, we don't need to talk about that. That's not, it's, if you can't beat, who did they take to overtime? Florida Atlantic?
Yes.
If you can't beat Florida Atlantic, gosh, and Florida State would love nothing else than to destroy Florida's any lingering remaining hope at getting into the playoff. I don't think they would, even if they beat Alabama. I don't think they would get in. But gosh, that's a tough game. I'm not confident at all in Florida's offense. I think you've got to. I think Florida State wins.
Okay. I would have before last weekend. I would have picked the Gators in this one, especially as a home team. I am not convinced. I don't know. It's a tough one. I can see why you perhaps are not paying attention, especially when you're coming into a game against Florida Atlantic. But that is a big difference in talent there, and to let that game go to overtime, perhaps Florida is not the team we thought it was. I will stick with the Seminoles as well.
And this is a consistent problem with Florida. They did this against Vanderbilt too. Remember 9-6. So this is not. This is if it just happened last week, I might say okay, they were overlooking looking ahead to the rivalry game. But this is a pattern. with Florida now. So yeah, I think that's something to worry about. And gosh, that SEC title game has the potential of being absolutely brutal.
That could be. That could be. We are down to three formally picking games. One of which actually probably shouldn't be on the list because both teams kind of need some help to get anywhere beyond the game that they're playing. But it's my show, so we're gonna talk about it anyway. This is, of course, number 3 Ohio State at number 12 Michigan. I didn't even look up the line when I saw this because everyone knows what I'm going to pick. Ohio State is at 12-3 in this rivalry since 2000. Michigan last won in 2011. Carla, what do you think?
Well, we joked last week about how this was going to be 2 straight weeks of you not giving a damn about the whole state of Michigan. And, well,
right.
Apparently your offense didn't either last week.
No.
That was, and Zeke took a lot of heat for what he said after the game. And maybe that was, maybe it was out of line.
He was out of line. He was also correct.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. He was absolutely correct. Yeah. Because when you're sitting there watching that game, you were just like, where did the offensive game plan go? Because this was not the
second thing I was thinking. The first thing I was thinking was, God, I'm cold. I'm cold and I'm wet.
It looked pretty miserable.
Yes.
Yeah. It's hard to, it's really hard to blame him for his comments. Yeah, it was out of order from the way, hierarchy works, but gosh, he was right. And unless that game plan changes significantly, I think you're in for a nail biter this week against Michigan. Interesting stat that ESPN keeps throwing in our faces is the fact that a first-year Michigan coach has never lost this game at home. And Michigan, would love to just completely end this. Ohio State needs a really, really good game, and they need their secondary to step up big time because that's where Michigan gets his mojo is from the passing game. And if they can shut down Rudock and be able to force Michigan to be a little bit more one-dimensional on the run game, or at least try to balance that out, I think Ohio State is in okay shape. But gosh, the secondary's got to play, and you got to figure out that offense. And if you can do those 2 things, I think Ohio State will bounce back. But it's going to be a nail biter.
As it always is. I think some of what happened with the offense last week had to do with weather, which was legitimately miserable, wet and especially windy. And then perhaps it snowballs from there, and the coaches overreact in on the more conservative side, but they should have. Ohio State's defense can play as well as it needs to beat Michigan. And in fact, I think Ohio State's defense will be the best that Michigan has seen this season. One thing I'm curious about. I know Jake Rhoda can run a little bit. No one's going to mistake him for Denard Robinson, but that has been a problem for Ohio State's defense. In fact, that's been a bigger problem than a straightforward drop back passer. And you recall last weekend's game as an example. The kid who started against Ohio State from Maryland also. Running quarterback caused some problems, and this is something that Harbaugh, Coach Harbaugh is familiar with, having played with a coach to running quarterback in San Francisco for a while, and actually was the only head coach who made him look good. You guys are, of course, you guys know you know which way I'm going to pick this, and I'm going to pick this way regardless. I do think. Honestly, and perhaps a bit arrogantly, that this is the best team that Michigan has faced this season. I think Ohio State does have the offense to score on Michigan's defense. I will say that Michigan is better sooner than I expected them to be. And this is a legitimately good Wolverines team. But it ain't happening this year. Ohio State will win a tight game this time, and win in Columbus next year, and then 2 years down the road, next time we go back to Ann Arbor, perhaps we can talk about Michigan winning again, or maybe not. The next up we have we finished the day with 2 night games, which will both be outstanding. Notre Dame, number 4 at number 11 Stanford. Of course, we've referenced this already. Stanford is a 3.5 point favorite. What do you think?
Interesting. Stanford's the favorite at home, although being a 3-point favorite at home means that it's even. But still, Stanford kind of sneaky quiet last couple weeks, but really, really good. They've had some really strong performances the last couple of weeks. Notre Dame, on the other hand, just kind of treading water and, almost let last week get away from them. Now, true, okay, they played at Fenway Park. That's always kind of a weird setting. When you're not playing in a traditional football stadium, there's some weird kind of, things you have to deal with when you play in those kinds of environments. And okay, sure, we'll give you that much. But 5 turnovers is a problem. Again, especially against a Boston College team that's not really all that great. I mean, they're a decent football team, but to be ranked number 6 in the college football playoff rankings and to have that kind of performance at the time they ranked number 4, that doesn't give me a lot of confidence heading into this week, especially traveling all the way across the country. The other thing that makes me really nervous about this game if you're a Notre Dame fan is the way that the Irish defense is completely inconsistent. They can force 3 and outs, but they can also give up huge plays, and they're consistently doing both. And so the 3 and outs don't mean a lot in the outcome of the game if you're giving up the 35 to 40 yard pass or the 35 to 40 yard run every other series. That's a concern against a Stanford team who runs and is riding the legs of Christian McCaffrey, who, for whatever reason, kind of nationally has kind of been, again, Stanford flying under the radar, McCaffrey kind of flying under the radar until today when he got named to like every single awards list, and even beat out Fournette for the place on the Maxwell Award. Fournette's not a Maxwell finalist. Christian McCaffrey is. And I think that says a lot about what people think about this Stanford team. In fact, there's talk tonight on the playoff show that, if all heck breaks loose, which it could do, we're good at predicting chaos, that could a 2-loss Stanford team make the playoff. And I think you could make a pretty good argument for their resume. If chaos breaks loose and there's that opportunity for them to slip in, I think that's definitely a possibility. I think Stanford wins this game, and I think they win this game fairly convincingly. I'm saying by like 2 scores, not necessarily 2 touchdowns, but I think it's going to be a 2-possession game that they're going to come out and win, because I just don't think we've looked at Notre Dame's schedule, and we've consistently said we don't see it. We don't get what the committee sees and how that was a stronger schedule than an Oklahoma or Michigan State or Iowa. Even why Iowa wasn't there. They played good teams, but so did Iowa. And I think they're going to hit a wall against Stanford, and just Stanford's going to win, I think, and that's just going to mess everything up in that kind of 5, 6, 7 in the playoff.
Right. I agree. Stanford wins this. Stanford's offense really since the mystifying week 1 win at Northwestern, or week 1 loss, at Northwestern, Stanford's offense has been consistent, scoring the 40-point range every single week against all comers. Defense has played well, and then you look at Notre Dame, and it's I'm back to where I was a couple weeks ago. Thinking I just do not see how they realistically fit in with the one of these things is not like the other, and I kind of think that's the Irish.
Yeah.
I will say if Notre Dame does win this game, and I said this earlier, all things being equal, if they are in a position to be in the top 4, I think they get there because of who they are. But I think the Cardinals going to end those arguments on Saturday. And then our final game, they call it Bedlam, and it refers to the game and could refer to what it might do for the all of college football by the time this thing is over. This is a number 7 Oklahoma at number 6 Oklahoma State. Oklahoma, the road team, is a 6.5 point favorite. What do you think?
I think a lot of this game hinges on whether or not Baker Mayfield can play for the Sooners. Now it's still really early in the week, but Baker Mayfield suffered a concussion early in the second half against TCU last week. And we saw what happened in the second half of that game. Oklahoma had that game firmly under control, and Baker Mayfield had to come out, and the Sooners needed a defensive miracle to prevent TCU from tying the game at the end. So we've now seen this Oklahoma offense without its kind of kingpin, so to speak, in the backfield. What happens if he doesn't go? I would be worried. Now, I think from we're recording this on Tuesday. Stoops said today that Mayfield had practiced, so it's looking pretty good that he's going to be able to go. But you've got to keep your fingers crossed if you're a Sooners fan that he doesn't take an awkward hit or something weird happen to re-aggravate that to force him to come out, because I'm not confident in that Oklahoma offense. And likewise, it seems like the Oklahoma defense relies on its offense for fuel, because the defense kind of folded once Mayfield was out too, which is not like the Oklahoma defense that we've seen the last couple of weeks. So really, really interesting there. Oklahoma State needs help. If they win this game, that doesn't mean that they win the Big 12. They need Baylor to lose. Whether they lose this week against TCU or Baylor has that extra game. It's not an extra game, but they play Texas championship week. So Oklahoma State needs Baylor to lose to be able to advance in, which is interesting because, again, like I said, last week I had Oklahoma State at number 4, which means that I'm apparently the kiss of death for teams that are ranked number 4. So Iowa, I'm really sorry. But no, Oklahoma, I'm really sorry because I have Oklahoma. Right. Yeah, I have Oklahoma at 4. So maybe Oklahoma State wins this one. I think it's going to be a riot of a game to watch. I hope Mayfield is okay to be able to stay in the game. If he stays in the game, the Sooners win. If something happens to him, I think Oklahoma State will roll at home. I would say Oklahoma State's going to jump out early because they're playing at home. It's senior night. They're going to be juiced. I think Oklahoma needs to weather that opening storm. And if they can weather that opening storm or at least go toe-to-toe with them in that first quarter, I think Oklahoma will pull it out. I think they're the better team.
Okay. I've watched Oklahoma on and off through the season. I watched the tail end of their game at Tennessee. Was really impressed with how they handled that. Tennessee, not a great team, but boy, that's a Neyland Stadium's not an easy place to do what they did. I've recently watched and paid more attention to Oklahoma State. I come away with those experiences feeling like Oklahoma is a more complete team, a more solid team. Oklahoma State can score. Yes, sir, they can. Yeah. But I think Oklahoma is just the better of the two. Certainly, you do have to wonder about injuries, and as Carla noted, we're recording this a little bit earlier in the week than we usually do. So we're going to offer that caveat and see how it goes. But I see Oklahoma winning this one. Is that an automatic ticket to the Final Four? Nope, it's not, because they don't have another game after that one, and most of the other teams ahead of them do. Although not Notre Dame. But if we're correct about Notre Dame, then that doesn't matter. And we're just going to have to do this again next week.
We are. That's the fun part when listening to Jeff, and as you were saying with Kirk mentioning that that on the playoff show, that this isn't a poll.
Right.
It's a week by week evaluation. Which is a completely different way of thinking about things, which is why the movement can be so drastic. And you're right. I mean, we still have at least another week. December 6th is Selection Sunday, and then we'll find out. But yeah, there's still a lot of games to be played and a lot of shuffling that could still happen. And Stanford is ranked higher than Oklahoma State. So if both Oklahoma and Notre Dame win, which win is more impressive? Those little nuanced kind of things. Exactly. Yeah. Those little nuanced kind of things. And then we're going to continually be talking about that Texas loss for Oklahoma. It's just, it's going to be an interesting finish to see if teams win out, then we're kind of we're going to be, but our team's going to win out. We've learned out the last 2 weeks. No, they're not. Something is going to happen between now and next Saturday that's going to blow this whole thing up.
Next Saturday, that's guys. We just talked about Wivalwy week. We will be back at this time next week for Championship Week. Although,
which is much easier to say.
Yes, it is Championship Week.
Yes.
I need another beer. Is what I need. Thank you guys, Carla. Thank you very much for joining us once again.
Thank you. Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving to you and to you guys. We will see you all back here for not Wivalwy week, but Championship Week next week. See you.